Hello and welcome to Batflips and Nerds, the baseball podcast with a British twist. It is the podcast you've all been waiting for, the Grand World Baseball Classic preview. And joining me to preview this, what should be a tremendously exciting tournament, we have, of course, the stat man himself, Russell Eason. Russell, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk about international baseball. Got the cap on and everything.
And obviously, we couldn't talk about international baseball without the other member of our lauded correspondent team from the last WBC making his long-awaited podcast return. It is Gavin Tramps. Gav, how's it going?
I'm very good. How are you guys?
Doing well. Looking forward to talking about this. I think we've got a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. And I think before we get into the details of this tournament itself, I wonder if, Russ, maybe if somebody's listened to this and thinking, I've heard a bit about this World Baseball Classic, but don't really know what it is, like what's happening here. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the tournament?
Yeah, so like the World Baseball Classic is kind of potentially was like started off as a invitational sort of tournament, but it was effectively the first time that the MLB and basically what was at the time the International Baseball Federation, which is now World Baseball Softball Confederation, actually agreed to put a tournament on together. There had been historical tournaments run by WBSC that were to work out who kind of like the best players, best teams, the best countries were, but this is the one where actually MLB finally decided to let their players take part. And so actually we had, in the truest sense, the first kind of one. So in 2006, that happened. So we managed to get like the first baseball World Classic in 2006. Since then, 2009, 2013, 2017, 2023, 2026, all on a delightful, not quite 3 or 4 year schedule, depending on various different reasons that have caused that. It's a tournament which effectively has been. It's pretty easy to say has been dominated by Japan. They won the inaugural tournament in 2006 and won it again basically like in 2009. But it has been basically picked up by other teams along the way, with like the Dominican Republic and with Korea having their moments in the sun as well. So, but yeah, it's a tournament basically which we get to see theoretically the best players in the world. Now, that hasn't always been the case for different reasons, but it makes sense to kind of now hopefully see it with getting into as close to as a equivalent of the Baseball World Cup, which is what it actually used to be called.
Yeah, and you two were both out there last time. Gav, it certainly felt, watching it from afar, I imagine it felt like this to you, that it sort of really took it to the next level, the last tournament, that international appeal really spread and a lot more people were talking about it. And we obviously had the epic final between the USA and Japan. Was that your experience? Did it feel like a World Cup of baseball?
Well, it's really interesting because for us, it was among the most exciting experiences we've had. But then I was listening to Ken Rosenthal, who was also saying a very similar thing, that he's done Super Bowls, World Series, Olympics, and the WBC in 23 was the most exciting tournament that he's ever covered. So, if someone like that with that much experience had that sort of experience with the event, then yeah, it really has taken on a new lease of life, I think. And it probably is, you can probably narrow it down to when Mookie Betts and Mike Trout decided they were going to participate, and then everyone else wanted to get involved. And the team that the USA put out last time was, simply immense. And so all the players who missed out, the Bryce Harpers of the world, then they want to get involved this time. And then I think there's just been an avalanche of talent who wants to play, who wants to participate. And if you took the insurance issue out, which we'll get to later, but there's hardly a top player who is not going to be performing next month.
Yeah, it's a pretty terrific lineup of players here. I think certainly in the past you would have looked at teams from some of these countries and either gone, who are these people? Or you would have thought, why is this guy who just got DFA'd by the Reds on the starting pitch here for a World Baseball Classic. I'm not thinking of anyone specific, but it was that type of vibe. You certainly had a lot of that, even on teams that you would consider to have strong baseball heritage. It was not a priority for a lot of these players. So it is great to see the strength in depth that we've got this year. And I suppose, Russ, you mentioned Japan's relative dominance over this tournament. Are they still the team to beat here, do you think? Can you see them doing a repeat of their famous victory last time over the USA?
It's an interesting one, because I think because the Japanese team plays more together, there are other international tournaments, the Premier 12 being the big one, and the top Japanese players do play that in as well. So they play together as a team a lot more. Until the last Premier 12 final, Japan hadn't lost an international game in 30 games. So it was span across like nearly 50 years when they lost the final to Taiwan, or Chinese Taipei, as we have to refer to them in this tournament. I think you have to honestly say that they deserve to basically still be the favorites. I think the US, you could easily say, potentially have a better lineup and the better players, but about playing in this side of format, about having a manager who knows how to manage well in these scenarios, I think Japan has that edge that pushes them a little bit further than what you could maybe say for the USA and the Dominican Republic, which are probably like those would be the top three, with Puerto Rico probably just a slightly little bit below them.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Puerto Rico, because Gav already alluded to the insurance issues. So this is a squad that has some pretty high-profile names to draw on. Francisco Lindor, Carlos Correa among them. Gav, you've got a piece up on the website about this, but can you just take people through what exactly is going on with Puerto Rico and their insurance, and why we're not going to see some of these guys this year?
Absolutely cannot. No, it is it's so confusing. But yeah, basically, MLB have an agreement with an insurance company that they will cover the salaries of the players if they get injured. 2 years for a hitter, 4 years for a pitcher. But there are many get-out clauses, one of them being if the player was on the 60-day IL last year, another one if they've had off-season surgery, no matter how minor. And yeah, so lots of players, and it does really seem to be so many of the Puerto Rican stars are now deemed ineligible. So we don't have Carlos Correa, Javier Baez is for another reason, Francisco Lindor, Berrios, the pitcher, and then for Venezuela they haven't got Jose Altuve. So yeah, it's put a bit of a dampener on the whole tournament to begin with, but it has just devastated the Puerto Rican lineup, considering that they are one of the host countries. So there's 4 host countries. We've got 4 groups of 5. Four groups of 5 teams. It was such a big occasion for Puerto Rico. So the fact that I think they've lost 8 players who would get into any team. So yeah, it's I don't know what WBC and MLB are going to do about it. I don't think they really give a damn at the moment, but I don't know what they'll do to stop it happening again next time. But yeah, it's certainly, I would feel very resentful if I was Puerto Rican. Russ, surely you can improve on that.
I think there's a sliding scale here. I think that saying that Carlos Correa's contract is potentially too much for somebody to be willing to insure. You know what? There were multiple teams that were willing to offer him a contract and then take that contract back when they did his medical. So, not to be there's something going on there, but that potentially seems reasonable. Lindor looks like another one. Now there are stuff that's come out and said that he maybe is recovering from before the season, recovering from a surgery that he had that we didn't really know about. Can never know whether these are smoke and mirrors or it's actually the case. But there does seem to be something that has changed here compared to what it was like last year around. Was it because we had Edwin Diaz and Jose Altuve get injured in the last tournament, which potentially has changed some of these premiums? I think the fact that there has so much adversity impacted the Latin American teams, and we basically haven't really had a US player not get their insurance is definitely does also feel a little bit odd. Have seen some rumors though that suggest that actually Mike Trout might be playing uninsured. So it puts some of that into context as well. I did also read a rumor that supposedly Bad Bunny was willing to pay the insurance for a load of the Puerto Rican players himself, but I don't know how how much truth went into that or not. It's a sad state of affairs that you don't basically have the best players take place. I think, however it needs to be sorted, it needs to be sorted for the next time around to work out what it is. MLB teams already have like a way of stopping teams really from playing this, because if they didn't play a certain percentage of the games in the major league last year, the team has the right to say no. It's not on the player to decide. And as we'll talk across various teams, prospects and players going into contract years also generally have the incentive to not take part in the tournament because there's stuff that their clubs want them to do or stuff that they need to do to make sure they actually get the best money that they can. So it's another little annoyance that means we don't quite get to see the best players, but I still think this tournament is going to have the best squads that we've seen.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I'm sure Bad Bunny could afford it.
Yeah, we can be down about the players who are missing, and obviously it's sad for Puerto Rico, but for us as neutrals or as British fans as we're going into this, but as a neutral fan, it is fantastic. We've got so many high-profile players and so many exciting youngsters who, in previous tournaments, may not have been allowed to play. So yeah, we should look at that and be really optimistic that this is going to be a great tournament.
Yeah, we still have 9 of MLB's top 100, the top 10 out of that top 100. So, with the exception being Jose Ramirez, who seemingly didn't want to play second fiddle to Manny Machado in the Dominican Republic team.
Mm.
So
internal strife in the Dominican. Well, we probably should talk about some of these squads because you're gonna recognize a lot of names, and there might be some other names you don't know so well, but I think you probably will in the very near future because there's a lot of prospects on this list. A lot of guys I think we're going to see in the majors, including some guys on Team GB. So I guess we'll go group by group and run down those pools, and then we can have a talk about a few highlights from the squads and any guys you want to watch out for. So we'll start with Pool A. The aforementioned Puerto Rico lead that pool, but we've also got Cuba, Canada, Panama, and Colombia. So I guess given the slightly decimated Puerto Rico squad, we've still got some household names on this, haven't we, Russ?
Yeah, that Puerto Rico team is still utterly phenomenal to kind of go through. Pretty much everyone on that squad is an MLB player or has basically played MLB baseball like very, very recently. So it's not like it is going to kind of to struggle, but it doesn't quite have the top class people you have. Like you've got Martin Maldonado and Christian Vasquez as your catchers. We have some of the more interesting talking point is Nolan Arenado. By his mother's heritage, switching to play for Puerto Rico this tournament, given he played for the USA in the last tournament. But yeah, and then obviously from the pitching perspective, we have Edwin Diaz, and let's see, hopefully that he makes it through this tournament clean without any injuries, and I don't have to go insulting TV producer. TV is how you always do TV. I can't remember now. For
don't start. You're getting out of trouble again now, Russ.
Sending a tweet that everybody thought was John and was me drunk at like 2 a.m. in Miami.
Nolan Arenado, maybe not at the peak of his powers anymore, but obviously been a very good player in his lifetime. But good to see him out there. Gav, anybody you're looking out for in particular on the remnants of the Puerto Rico squad?
Now, I see that the lineup which they're likely to put out, and yeah, it's just disappointing every time I see it because Willie Castro, you've got instead of Carlos Correa, Edwin Arroyo. He's a Reds shortstop prospector, I believe. It could be quite exciting to see him. But I think that this the fact that Puerto Rico has been decimated, I think that this makes this group the most exciting group. I cannot see who is going to win. I cannot see who's going to come second. I think all 5 of them have a good chance to get through, and you can't say that with many of the groups.
Yeah, there are definitely opportunities for everyone here. I think you're right about that. Russ, is there somebody you like as a dark horse here, if such a thing exists in a more wide open group now?
Well, the dark horses of baseball for a long time have always been Cuba. Because effectively for a lot of these players, we don't really get to see them, because to maintain their Cuban national, to be able to play for all the Cuban national team, they have to effectively stay in Cuba and not play in any of the leagues that are affiliated. So we kind of don't necessarily have much of a view. Now, we do this year have some players that have made a name for themselves in other tournaments in other countries. So when you look through kind of the list and you see Levan Muenelo, who's had an absolute storm of a time in the MVP, bloody hell, you can then realize that actually they have a top end pitcher which can give anybody a run for their money. You don't really know how much of that team is going to perform, with the exception of maybe Juan Moncada when it comes to the actual hitting side. Overlooking Cuba in international baseball has always been a very dangerous thing to do.
That pitcher, Manello, is just incredible. 9 years in Japan, and he has a 1.8 ERA, 630 innings, and 750 strikeouts over 9 years. So he's obviously knows what he's doing. And then they've also got Alfredo Despan. I don't know how old he is. Got to be about 55. So he's got he's going to be in his 5th WBC, and he holds the record for the most homers, despite not hitting a homer at the last one. But I think that record might go, because I think it's only at 7. So, and I think Trey Turner, did he get 5 last time?
He did. He had a rock-looking good tournament. I think obviously if you were to look at this on paper, we're just not even seeing what these teams would be like. You is Cuba are the second ranked team. Canada, I always am surprised basically by how poor I end up thinking the Canadian lineup is, because I'm just they're a North American team. They should have a lot of good players. But you then realize it's actually way more fringe MLB than you thought it would be. With the exception of the Nailers, most of the other, and Tyler O'Neill, most of the other hitters are bench or utility players, or a couple of prospects that haven't really maybe reached the potential that you thought they would. And you're just oh, okay, so maybe that's not there. And again, on the pitching side, you're okay, James Paxton, Cal Quantrill, Logan Allen, Michael Soroka, James Tyone, they're good. They're not amazing, but you think that they should do okay with that. But me and Gav watched Canada play awful baseball against Team GB, who then managed to play even worse baseball in return. But if it clicks, they could be a good team. And then Panama and Colombia have individual players that could peak at this moment and have an impact on the tournament, but you'd expect them to really kind of come out as winners. But Colombia beat Mexico last time around in the tournament, so having had to requalify to kind of get back into this, it is definitely a pool that could end up like one of the ones last year that had 2 wins for all the teams across the board.
I think the Colombia victory against Mexico is, I think that epitomizes how great this tournament is. The fact that Colombia finished bottom of the group, they had to requalify, but they beat Mexico, who came within a whisker of getting to the final. It was only like a walk-off by Murakami. And Mexico beat the USA in the pool group. So with such a short tournament, just one-off games, it really is the sort of thing that anyone can beat anyone else. So in Pool A, yeah, it could go down to the wire, or one team could just end up winning 4 games. So it'll be exciting.
Yeah, it's very much baseball as we don't see it normally, isn't it? You know, we talk about how random the playoffs are. We did briefly have the 1-game wildcard playoffs, but it's very rare for us to see anything in Major League Baseball certainly get settled by 1 game. So it's quite exciting, and the talent gap can be severely eliminated by these sort of very short sample pool games, and as you say, anything can happen. We could have seen a very different outcome last time if not for a couple of those moments you mentioned. So I think let's move on to Pool B then, featuring our beloved Great Britain, of course, but also the mighty United States of America, Mexico, Italy, and Brazil. And is this time we're going to spend quite a lot more time talking about Team GB at a later stage, but I think probably we should step in and cover the amount of talent that the US have amassed for this tournament, because last time out, I think it's fair to say that the hitting lineup was pretty good and the pitching didn't really match it, but that's not the case this time, is it, Russ?
No, this time, like, you've got the 2 Cy Young winners. Well, I don't think you could really ask for much more. But it's like, okay, yeah, you got theoretically the 2 best pitchers in baseball, and then you added Logan Webb, you added, I'm trying to think of like Clay Holmes and stuff like that to actually make this team like interesting. Joe Ryan to be like, yeah, you know what, there were games being started by Miles Michaelis and Adam Wainwright last time around, which they weren't great players. They're still good MLB players, but they weren't great MLB players 3 years ago. You've got Mason Miller, you've got David Bednar to come off the Griffin Jacks to kind of come off the bench as bullpen relief. Garrett Whitlock as well, depending how they choose to use him. Like, that side of it is like, it is hands above what it was before. The USA starters last time had a 4.5 ERA. So I just don't expect that to be the case this time around. So they will probably limit the teams better than they did the time before. It wasn't necessarily USA's massive problem when they gave up too many runs last time around. They struggled to score it quite a lot, and then they did manage to cull it into key moments. And I'm not certain this is a better hitting lineup than it was in 2023. It's still good. Like, let's not even talk. It's still good. It will still probably be the best 9 that is put out there. But I don't think like maybe just having like Bryce Terang and Ernie Clement. I know these guys are some defense or maybe kind of your utility guys who you're not kind of expecting to pick up much time. But I don't think this hitting squad is stronger than it was last time around. It could be the same, but I think it might be just a little worse, if I may say so.
So who
Yeah,
have we
there's
got
a known Bobby Witt Jr.
lineup?
hater.
Who would we put in the lineup? Okay, so we're going to lead off with Bobby Witt or Corbin Carroll, one of the two. The other one would probably go second. Then we go Judge, Raleigh, Schwarber,
Harper,
Harper,
Bregman.
PCA. And then what have I not put in now?
This is the problem. Gunner's on this team, obviously.
Yeah, so Bregman, Henderson. Yeah. Okay, I guess
Bryce
it's all
Terang's
really
probably
good.
got to play.
Yeah.
Terang's on the bench, surely.
Well, you need someone at
Who plays
second, don't
second
you?
base?
Yeah, but won't they just play Witt or Henderson at second? I mean, Witt's, a genius defensive shortstop, so.
Well, as Gavin and I will tell you from watching the last year's WBC, forcing your best 9 onto the field and then worrying about what happens with defense later, also known as the Team GB approach, leaves your kind of nerves a bit more frayed than you would hope they could be.
There's probably a lot of rules that we don't know. So, it's quite possible that the Royals are insistent that Bobby Witt does not change position. And he only plays a certain number of games or whatever is agreed. I think the pitching is interesting because
you think they might share?
Yeah, and so I think Bryce Terang will probably get the second base. And I think last time, wasn't it Jeff McNeil? He was a starting second baseman. So, and he seemed quite a step below the other players. I think it will be really interesting to see how Mark DeRosa, the USA manager, copes with the pitching, because you have the restrictions, don't you? Is it 65 pitches in the pool games? So, it's okay having Skeens and Scooble, but they are only throwing 65. and then they have to rest for so long, and then the what games do you throw them into? Do you use Joe Ryan against GB, or do you use one of those because it's the Saturday night primetime game? And then when it gets to the later stages where we expect the USA to be, I'm not sure that Skeens has played in such a big game. He hasn't reached the postseason, has he? Yeah, and I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the USA are going to win this. But I'm always going to be controversial or awkward.
Yeah, Gav is spot on with how this had to be managed. Like, it has to be managed completely different to how you would manage a Major League Baseball game. I genuinely think it's one of the things that historically in the last 5-10 years, GB have got really well, which has got them to the position that they can do this. You're playing to win today's game with almost no consideration for what happens. Like, in the pool play, there is a very slight consideration that actually it might be better to get mercied, so you don't have to even use up your own arms than to continue the game. But in most considerations, it's like you're doing everything to win this game, and certain teams will go with that mentality, and certain teams will be using their arms a bit more strategically and thinking about the future, and that can cost them. I think that was one of the big impacts for the Colombia-Mexico game. It was the first game, and I think Mexico were not thinking of playing to 100% win that game. They were thinking about the game against USA that was coming and didn't want to use certain players. But yeah, the USA have the chance to pick. What they'll do is they'll probably piggyback 3-4 innings off the top guys, with do Skubal and then Whitlock, and then do Joe Ryan followed by Skeens, or Skeens followed by Joe Ryan. And then once the games are not in doubt, out comes Clayton Kershaw to to eat up some innings that don't really matter. Matthew Boyd's on that team as well. These are guys that you can just throw out there and they'll be okay. They won't probably get put into any scenario where it's any high leverage, but they'll eat up the innings good enough that you don't have to really worry about using anybody else.
But that's exactly where the strategy will be really interesting, because you say Joe Ryan followed by Skeens, or Skeens followed by Joe Ryan. That means that they're throwing a really small workload to what they used to. So it's throwing their rhythm out, and I don't know how focused they can be if they're thinking, right, well, I'm going to get pulled after 40 pitches or something. If they go over 50 pitches, then they've got to have the 4 days rest. So you can't throw Ryan and Skeens or Ryan and Skubal if you haven't got enough starters for the game in 3 days' time. So it'll be fascinating to see how a team which is blessed with the wealth of talent that the USA have manage that. And it could be that DeRosa, yeah, I think there's a lot on his shoulders, more than maybe any of the others, because I don't think any of the others have so many pitching choices.
So you referenced Mexico's victory over the US in the last edition, Gav. Are they the other team? Are they the team that GB has got to beat to get into the knockout stages, assuming the USA take one of those spots?
The GB outfielder, Justin Wiley, before the last WBC, we posed a question to him, because I was really interested that GB were playing the USA on Saturday night, and they're playing Canada Sunday morning. And how did the GB players pick themselves up after the high of playing against this dream team to focus on this game, that's a winnable one against Canada? And he was just so dismissive. He just said, every game's winnable, which is correct. Put me in my place. But, every game is winnable. But, realistically, GB are not going to beat Mexico. They're not going to beat the USA. They can, but it seems unlikely. I think GB, the chance for the victory has to be against Brazil. The team that Italy are putting out is just, it's incredible how many. Well, it's not incredible how many Americans have Italian heritage, but yeah, it's incredible how many of these guys want to play for Italy. So it must be the best roster that they've ever put out. So yeah, getting back to Mexico. Mexico looked to be the second best team in the pool, but I think GB will need a lot of luck on their side if they are going to run them close.
Yeah. I think some people will recognise some of these Italian names. Vinny Pascantino is on their squad. Aaron Nola is on their squad. We've got a few other big leaguers on here.
Don't you
Good
dare!
old Mazzoni.
Don't you dare massacre the Royals guy's name.
Jack Caglione.
Caglianoni.
Miles Mash.
It
It's
frustrates.
just Callejon, isn't
Yeah.
it?
I think it is just Callejon because he's an Italian American and doesn't know how to pronounce it how an Italian would.
Extra
So-
N in it, yeah. So it's Caglianoni. But yeah, he says Jack
Well, tell you what, Gav,
Caglione.
when you see him, you can tell him how to pronounce his name.
I would like to be a fly on the wall in the locker room of the Italian team when he walks in and says, "My name's Jack Caglione." But there you
well,
go.
given the fact I think that almost all of this Italian team, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 of the pitchers, are Italian Americans. I don't think most people are going to bat an eyelid.
No,
It's
true.
a team that's managed by Francisco Cervelli as well. Again, no. If you looked at the Italian team that went out for the last WBC in 2023, and you look at this one is steps above. Now, it's fairly simple to say that yes, it's the next World WBC. More point of people be involved. Also, they're in the US for their group compared to being in Taiwan as they were last time around. It makes players and it makes teams more likely to give the players up because they know they're just going down to Houston to sort it out. Don't have to worry about any kind of like major international travel and how that'll impact all of these things. So this Italian team, it's strong. Like, I think that hitting lineup, you could have a conversation to say that hitting lineup could be better than the Mexican one. Now, the Mexican one, with having Randy Rosarena, who was responsible for some of probably the moments of the WBC last time around, it is good, but it's going to have like some combination of Johan Aranda, Rowdy Tellez, Joey Meneses, maybe kind of in there as well, Nick Gonzalez. They're not amazing. They're all still MLB players. Alejandro Kirk behind the dish will be great. I think the step that Mexico will have over that Italian team is the pitchers. Like, the Italian team beyond Nola is not really starting MLB level, whereas Mexico have they have a Key, they have kind of like Taj Bradley, they have Tyon Walker, and then having Andres Munoz as your kind of like shutdown guy when you need someone, and I think that just puts them like a little bit higher in the expectation. They could still definitely mess something up, but you do have to think that like Mexico would probably be the Mexico USA game. You'll be expecting that's the game to play to kind of like get into the tournament. But again, it really goes with how things go about. GB have this time around have to do it the opposite way to what they did last time. They play Mexico at lunchtime to start off the tournament and then play USA in the evening the day afterwards. So they start off with Team GB, which we'll get to in a minute. They start off with their 2 hardest games before then facing Italy and then facing like Brazil. And by that point, they know basically, are these games to win to get us to advance in the tournament, or are these games to win to make sure that we stay in the tournament? Something we didn't mention at the start, but effectively finishing bottom of the group, you get thrown back into the world of the qualifiers, which is harder basically to get out, and these will always be harder and harder to get out as other teams progress, and the Team GB will not have access to some of their better players because it takes part in Europe on a cold September evening. So it'll be more difficult. But yeah, that's kind of like I would basically be saying that you'd expect USA, Mexico, and Italy as the 1, 2, 3. I would expect GB to probably finish 4th above Brazil.
I'm just going to point out that the Italians have a position player at third base. Well, actually, his baseball reference page says third baseman, catcher, and relief pitcher, which is fantastic. I don't think I've ever read that before. Giaconino La Saracina. I think he is very definitely 100% Italian. He's never played outside the Italian leagues. He's 22. So watch out for him. Genuine Italian.
With a Venezuelan birthplace, yeah.
So no,
We can't
it's
talk.
really good that he's in it. Because he was one of the players of the tournament in the Euros in Rotterdam that I went to. So he led the whole tournament in homers, and he had like a 1700 OPS. But he looked like a superstar. So the fact that they brought in all of these MLB or American Italians, but you still kept a couple of the guys who were in the Euros. So yeah, I'm really pleased that he's still in there. But it is definitely the best Italian roster ever, because you got Michael Lorenzen as well. So that's another pitcher they've got. Adam Ottavino, Sam Aldegheri, the Italian born and bred pitcher who plays for the Angels. So, and I think what's really exciting about it is there's so much youth in that team, because you've got I'll just run through it. Kyle Teal, so he's the catcher with the White Sox. Andrew Fisher, he's the Brewers guy that they took in the latest draft. Thomas Sagassi, the Cardinals infielder. Jacob Marcy and Jack Caglianoni. So and they're all like 24 or below. That's an exciting roster. So should we move on
and
to
I think
GB?
we should. Well, I was just going to say we've given the Brazilians very short shrift. Is there anything you want to say about Brazil other than that we think we can beat them?
Yeah, I who's the guy? Jose Contreras. Yeah, you remember him? So his son is pitching for Brazil, and his son hasn't yet been drafted because he's only 17 or something. So they do seem to be like a team of sons, because you've got Manny Ramirez's boy and obviously Dante Bichette Jr. So yeah, I don't know much about them at all, but this is a winnable game for GB.
Yeah, it's the same. It's like it's a lot of the guys that kind of got through in some of the tournaments to get them here are part of it, and you look at it and you'd be like, yeah, you know what? Like, I would say, if you think anybody's going to be bad in this tournament, that's a fool's errand. But GB has to go into this game, especially when it is like it could, if they've lost their first two games against Mexico and the United States, then this game against Brazil is effectively, it's a win, and you are more than likely safe for the tournament the next time around, which has to be the minimum expectations for TGB this time around.
Yeah, Joseph Contreras throws 98 and has a lethal forkball apparently. So looking forward to seeing him, potential draftee this summer. Vanderbilt commit apparently, so we'll see whether he actually gets drafted high enough to sign with someone. But yeah, so some very young players on the squad. Do you guys want to talk more about GB now, or do you want to save it for the all GB pod? Russell's just switched to his GB cap in preparation.
I think we'll definitely do a more in-depth GB one, but if you want to run through the main things which you've noticed since it's been announced, Russ.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where, because of kind of the same way we spoke about the Italian team, GB has the chance of eligibility for quite a lot of players that you might not necessarily think are British, thanks to the, let's say, the vagaries of the Commonwealth, and quite a lot of countries that people used to be British and therefore have access to passports. That's the way it works with the WBC. You just have to be able to prove that you could get a passport if you want one, not that you actually have one. So there were a lot of rumors about Team GB this time around, with a lot of the ideas of getting additional big players in, because after their performance last time around, obviously we managed to get Jazz back in, who actually had participated for Team GB in the qualifiers before in 2016, when they nearly qualified for the tournament in 2017. And there were other rumors about Roldis Trapman and Tristan McKenzie and a fair list of other players. In the end, this team has come out fairly in line with kind of like expectations. A few of those more wilder players haven't come through. There's still quite a few guys that have come playing in the tournament again, as they did last time round. Vance Worley and Tyler Bizzer, notable kind of like starting pitchers from last time around. We still have like Donovan Benoit, Michael Peterson, all who have like major league experience, like Javier Fernandez and stuff like that. but it is a dual co-captain, has been talked by the team themselves. Harry Ford and Jazz Chisholm do really push basically everything this team can do on the offensive side, and who knows what you can really get from everybody else. Like for me, like probably the whole entire tournament, I'm waiting for like Matt Koperniak to get his hit, because he went hitless in the last tournament, and he kind of had struggles. And me and Gav both spoke to like his parents who were there, and he like obviously knew that he wasn't playing his best, but he's someone who has been part of GB set, was a huge part of that team qualifying for the tournament back in 2020, for the 2023 tournament in 2022. Yeah, I think there's a lot of youth on this team, and there's a few very experienced heads when it comes to the pitching side, but that the offense is quite a young team.
A very wise person said to me, the floor of the roster is so much higher than we've ever had before, and the pitches are of a higher quality than before. Yeah, there was a little bit of disappointment that maybe some of the bigger names who had been rumoured did not make the roster. Personally, I'm really pleased that we've still got Matt Koperniak and BJ Murray and Jack Seppins and those sort of guys who I've seen a few times now. So, you know, you really root for them, and you don't want them to get usurped by a big name just because they're an MLB player. Yeah, I'm really excited about this roster. I think it will be absolutely fascinating. Like I said, with Mark DeRosa and the strategy that he has to do, I don't quite know how Brad Marcelino goes from the Rotterdam Euros, where he had, I don't know, gave 9 debuts to players, and so many of these were youngsters, so many of these were the under-23s, to this whole new roster now for this tournament. So I don't know how GB really manages to do so well with using completely different players for the different tournaments. I don't see how they gel, but obviously they do. They manage to instill this incredible confidence, incredible belief in the players, and I'm sure it will happen again. I'm sure they will surprise us. I'm sure they'll make us really proud. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing these guys put on the GB jerseys.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that came across in the last tournament, that not just because, you know, GB actually won a game and, you know, made the Mexico game very exciting as well, but, you know, the dugout celebrations with Harry and that, I think it came across that they had very strong collective team spirit, which must be a really difficult thing to instill when you're collecting together a group of guys, many of whom presumably have not played together at all before, or if they have, it's been on a very limited, short basis, not at all like being in an MLB clubhouse or in any other league around a full season.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that is noted. Definitely, Liam and Drew in the past have really pushed that this is something that the team gets to before the World Baseball Qualifier. They basically kind of like held a team meeting where they all basically talked about like what representing GB like means to them, because it all means a very different thing for each of them. Because yes, you have people who have English British parents, you have people that are born here from different areas, you have people that are born around the world and actually have their heritage from not just the Commonwealth in the Caribbean, but around the world. You had players from, like, which had Hong Kong heritage and all these different things. So it actually kind of brings together different ideas, different visions of like what it is to kind of like want to represent this country, and that instilled a great atmosphere within the teams we've seen in the past, and hopefully it's something that we'll see again this year.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. So we should probably move on to the next pool before we spend the rest of this podcast talking on GB. Pool C features, of course, the reigning champions, Japan, Australia, South Korea, Czechia, and Chinese Taipei. I guess we should at least briefly start with Japan. They always take this incredibly seriously, don't they? So is there any weakness in this squad again, or should we expect them to be about where they were last time, Ross?
Yeah, you can't look beyond it. Like there are a few names here that like weren't in the tournament last year. I think it's a sign that like they are, especially on the pitching side, that they're working through two of the best players that have how they performed in the MPB in the last couple of seasons. Obviously, there are names that are more widely known now than they were at the time with like Yoshiomi Yamamoto and Munetaka Murakami, who are now will be kind of names that people will know in America, whereas they might have not before. Little bit of a difference is Otani's only going to DH this time around. He's not going to pitch. There are rumors that was another insurance related thing. Don't know how much the case is that or not, or whether it's just effectively that what's been allowed. But this is still a lineup with top MLB players and the best MPB players, which you put them in a game against the best MLB players, they'll show you like a slightly different, but also a really, really good way of playing baseball.
Yeah, I'm excited to see some of these guys come up against MLB competition for the first time. Murakami and Okamoto, of course, we're going to be seeing a lot more of them this season, but this will be the first time we've seen them against some of the guys that they will, in some cases, be playing with this year. So that'll be fun. Gav, is there anyone you're looking out for on this Team Japan squad, other than the obvious?
Well, when we saw them last time, Yoshida was absolutely brilliant. He looked like he was one of the greatest players on the planet. So he obviously doesn't do that when he's playing for Boston, but I think playing for Japan, we'll look forward to seeing him dominate again. It looks like the Japan have this incredible roster. It is a shame that Roki Sasaki isn't available. I think it's disappointing how many Dodgers are not available. They're all focusing on getting themselves prepared for the MLB season. That's a company line. But considering it's the Dodgers who are this dynasty, who everyone thinks they're going to just sweep the World Series for the next couple of years, I think there's only 4 players, 5 if you include the Korean infielder, Kim, but only 4 or 5 players that are at the WBC. So many other teams have many more representatives. So it's a shame that Roki Sasaki isn't there, and also Lars Nootbaar. He was quite with his pepper grinder. He was quite a character last time, but he's out injured. But yeah,
that's a shame.
They should
Lars
win
seemed
it.
like he enjoyed himself.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Korea there. The KBO is obviously widely considered, the kind of the third best league in the world behind MLB and the MPB. Do they have a legit chance at this tournament, Ross?
That's a really interesting question because they have bottled it in regards, and that's not my words. They are words of kind of Korean fans for the last few tournaments. They finished like second and third in the first like iterations, and then have like failed to make it out of the group stages since. And there have been some notorious defeats along the way, which do not sit well with South Korean fans. So in most normal circumstances, they would have been the second best ranked team in this group, and you would have gone, yeah, go on, like you're gonna do best out of this compared to some of the other ones. But they did end up with having Chinese Taipei or Taiwan in this group. But I think from a perspective of the hitters are basically some of the best hitters that actually come from the KBO, which again, as I said, it's probably the third best league in the world, but the top of that league is comparable with like MLB players. They'll be led by Jung Ho Lee, the Giants outfielder. The pitching side has usually let them down in the past, and so it's the same again. Like they've still got a space for like Hyunjin Ryu, but you also have kind of the likes of like Dane Dunning and Riley O'Brien, who are names that people might know. There are some good guys coming through that you might expect to have some impact in, but it is a bit more. The variance is quite strong with this Korean team, and I think that's what we should expect. But you should also not be surprised if they gave Japan a run for their money in a game.
And Gav, Czechia are in this group, but you presumably have some experience with them in person. I mean, they're one of the strongest sides in Europe. So what should we expect out of them? Is there anyone we should be looking out for?
Well, I think they're unique. They are the only team without a representative who plays in the USA. So of the 20 countries, for all of their roster to be based in Europe is pretty incredible. And I think the one who would have been the exception is that people would have known was Eric Sogard, but he's had to withdraw. But yeah, they're a very, very organised team. They play as a team. They're very smart. They've got a lot of experienced guys, but they're not household names. They're not names that anyone, apart from those who follow European baseball, would know. But they did well last time. They managed to get their win, so they automatically qualified. In the Euros recently, they finished up coming third, bronze medal. So yeah, it is. I think every single game against Czechia is going to be a really tough game for their opponents. Whether they can pick up a couple of wins, I don't know. But I do think that the second place in this group is up for grabs. So yeah, the league that these guys play in isn't as strong as the KBO, but they are going to give everyone a run for their money.
And the Australian squad, Russ, they might have a couple more names that people who watch MLB regularly recognise. Where do you see their chances in this group?
Yeah, again, it's like they have a lot like there is the Australian Baseball League, which plays in the winter, so you do have a lot of players that are actually based in there, but it is a highly competitive league. A lot of the Asian leagues send their best young talent to go play in there. MLB teams have sent people to play there in the past. I think Acuna played out in the ABL when he was younger as well. So it's not like it's a bad league in itself, but you do have a few names that you might recognize, like Warwick Sopold, who else? Like Curtis Mead. Those are the sorts of names. The big name that, depending on how into the baseball weeds you get, is Travis Bazzana. He is the generally ranked number one across most prospects. I think he is by MLB. I don't know where he is for you, Darius, at BP, but yes, second baseman who's at Cleveland, who probably would have played in the majors last season if he hadn't picked up a slight injury, is going to be the face of Australian baseball for quite a long time, if all things are to be believed with how his prospect rankings actually are. But no, this is a squad that plays, again, the same with what Gavin was saying with the Czech Republic team. They play a lot, they play together a lot, and they've played a lot of international baseball, which again I think is they have the players and the managers who know how to deal with these scenarios that some of the other teams might not necessarily. But they're also in a group where that's actually the case, where you have the three dominant Asian teams in the Czech Republic and Australia. This is actually all the teams that some of the probably 5 out of probably the top 6 or 7 teams that I would really expect the managers and the players know how to play international baseball.
Yeah, they've definitely been around and seen it before, that team. Gav, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I was not familiar with Stuart Fairchild's connection with Chinese Taipei, so can you shed any further light on that, being the former Reds fan that you are?
So Stuart Fairchild, he's a non-roster invitee for the Guardians at the moment, I think. His mother's Taiwanese, or from Taiwan. So that's how he qualifies. The Cubs also have a prospect, their first base prospect, Jonathan Long. He looks quite decent. Taiwan, or Chinese Taipei, they're just such a difficult one to judge because they are ranked second in the world. And they finished bottom of their group last time, but all of the 5 teams in the group last time finished with a 2-2 record, and Taiwan finished last because of the tiebreak. And so they picked themselves up and immediately won the Premier 12, which is like the WBSC's version of the World Baseball Classic, beating Japan, as Russ said earlier, and breaking Japan's like 30-game unbeaten record. So they are an incredible team. I don't know if it's erratic or if it's just unlucky, but you just never really know what to expect from them. So they qualified again. They finished in the qualification. They were against Spain. Spain, the team who keep beating GB in these tournaments. Spain had scored more runs, they'd conceded fewer runs, and they'd beaten Taiwan in the round robin stage. But by the time the group was finalised, they both had the same amount of points. But instead of this having a tiebreak, they had to play a one-off game, which Taiwan won. So they're here in the WBC, and Spain are back home watching again. So yeah, I think you have to accept that if you're the Premier 12 champions and you're ranked second in the world, you have to be a pretty good team. So yeah, even though we don't know anyone else apart from Stuart Fairchild, I think we have to accept that they are going to be a challenge for everyone. When I say we don't know anyone else, there is I'm going to butcher his name because I'm much better at Italian names than I am Taiwanese. Sung Chi Cheng, who has just been picked up by the Red Sox, and they are his fifth team of 2026 as he surfs the waves of DFA.
One of those waiver wire adventures. Yeah, there are a couple of guys. Yumin Lin for the D-backs has been considered a decent prospect at one point. The A's have stockpiled 3 of these guys. I think Wei-Yen Lin is on our A's prospect list, number 12. So there are some guys in the minors who are considered decent prospects here as well.
And the great Yu Chang. As a Cleveland fan who watched him as he come through and spent some time, I think, in Boston at the end or whatever. As Gavin said, in the qualifying tournament, Owen took a bit of an interesting route. They didn't really play most of the players that played in the Premier 12. They kind of used it as a we're going to let like our kind of second tier guys all have a tournament and see who plays well, and then they nearly bottled it. So quite a lot of their team that were involved in that qualifier are not in this this team, and it was only Yu Chang who was one of the main players that was kept, and was potentially one of the only reasons why Taiwan made it back to the tournament, because that could have been a serious embarrassment if they had kind of not taken the qualifier seriously and then lost because of it.
An unconventional approach. Okay, we should do the last group before we run out of time. Pool D features Venezuela, the Dominican Republic, the Netherlands, Israel, and Nicaragua. I don't think we can look past the Dominicans, the headline team to talk about here. So, Gav, where do we begin with this squad? I mean, this is right up there with Japan and the US for some of the star power, right?
I think I'd argue that it's better. This team is just, you know, all 3 of us play fantasy baseball. You know, we have to admit that. And when you see Julio Rodriguez, Juan Soto, and Fernando Tatis in the outfield, and then the infield 4 of Guerrero, Ketel Marte, Geraldo Perdomo, and Manny Machado, and Junior Caminero on the bench, and then at DH, and then Jeremy Pena on the bench. That is just, it's an extraordinary lineup. And this time they have got the pitching to go with it, which I think has always been the problem. So you've got Sandy Alcantara and Christopher Sanchez, as well as Luis Severino and Brian Bello. So it's this looks to be it's a dream team, and they have never, they won the tournament once, but they've never been to the final apart from that. I don't actually think they've been to the semi-final apart from the time they won it. So they've never performed as well as they should do. But this is a team for the ages. And they haven't got a couple of their best players in Eli De La Cruz and Jose Ramirez. So Jose Ramirez, as Russell hinted at earlier, it is a very weird situation because it appears now that he feels snubbed that they were going to play Manny Machado at third base, and he didn't. He thinks that he's a better third baseman, which quite rightly he is. So instead of being a team player, I think he's decided that he's going to skip the pool games and he might come back for the knockout stages. I didn't even know that was possible, but according to Paul Hoynes of the Cleveland, whatever the Cleveland paper's called, that's what his plan is.
This seems very unlike Jose Ramirez, Russ, based on what we know about him being, real Cleveland guy, loyal to the team. It sort of seems quite against the character that we've hitherto known about him.
Yeah, it's a question of like there are so many other factors that go on here that we don't really know. The view that I have of Jose as a Cleveland fan and everything that I've read about him is that he's signed multiple extensions at Cleveland at pretty friendly rates to stay at Cleveland and be a Clevelander for life. He says that at his recent extension, he was just like, I'm 50% Dominican, 50% Clevelander. So like he clearly kind of sees that and pushes that through. So there's definitely some politicking going on here. I don't know. Obviously, the manager is Albert Pujols as well, which means that there are characters in this room at the best of times. Even when we throw a manager into it as well, who is potentially a bigger character than half of the players, you go through. Now, you would have hoped they're able to do this in some regards. Some people have said it might actually be better that for the Dominican Republic this time around that they do just have like, here is your clear starting 9 and not having these potential arguments that have existed in the past to be like who's actually starting, and people getting upset. But even without Jose Ramirez, as Gavin said, it's the best like 7 on the field. Obviously, Austin Wells or Agustin Ramirez brings it down slightly compared to like the Team USA from a catching perspective, but the 7 on the infield and the 3 in the outfield, it's better than every other team that's out there. You got to hope that it works and they pull it together from a pitching perspective, because sheesh, this is a squad. This is a squad.
Yeah, and I feel sorry for the other teams in this group because Venezuela are not all that far behind, right, Gav? Like there's a lot of pretty excellent players on this team too. It kind of looks like the top 2 spots in this pool are very much favored towards these 2 teams.
I think as far as the talent of MLB, or the MLB talent on display goes, Venezuela look to be just behind Dominican Republic, but above the other 3. But yeah, it is an extraordinary lineup they're able to produce, because it did look maybe a month ago that they were really struggling because of obviously the political problems that were happening, and then certain players were saying that they weren't going to play, certain players weren't entirely sure if they were going to be able to play, and then throw into that Jose Altuve found out that he was going to be ineligible. But yeah, the roster when it was announced, it was almost everyone that they could possibly have wished for. So you've got Eduardo Rodriguez and I was trying to say his name properly. Ranger Suarez says his name's not Ranger, it's Rana Suarez, and Pablo Lopez. So that's a really good 3 starters you have. And then a decent number of bullpen arms. You've got the Contreras guys and Salvador Perez. So that's 3 catchers, or I suppose Wilson Contreras isn't the catcher anymore. But then, with Ronald Acuna Jr. and Jackson Churio in the outfield, it's you can't imagine how good the Venezuela versus Dominican Republic game is going to be. Maybe 5 of the 10 best outfielders on the planet playing at the same time. Yeah, it would be. They should do it, but you never know. As we said before, in these one-off games, in these short tournaments with all these extra rules, maybe you don't count out the Netherlands. The Netherlands seem to do really well in these tournaments. And, who knows about Israel and the pride that can be instilled that could bring an extra few percent out.
Yeah, the Dominican Republic versus Venezuela game being the final game of the group, as with I think a few of the other. I think it's the only one where I think theoretically the number 1 and the number 2 team are playing each other for the last game of the group. So it has the potential to all the dominoes to be avoiding a game against. I think they will have to play Japan basically if they end up runner-up of that pool. So you're probably looking to really try and win that. But no, as Gaz said, the Venezuelan lineup is strong. I think that game in Miami will be a pretty epic game the one last. So the games with like Puerto Rico and that lot in Miami last year and Venezuela were all fantastic atmospheres. A lot of the games that I saw that had Team USA involved, the Mexico game and the Venezuela game, but in Arizona and Miami, the US fans were in the minority in those games. So the atmosphere at Lone Depot, once again in the WBC, will probably be about tenfold whatever it is for the Marlins at any point during the regular season. So you can't really look beyond those two teams, but the Netherlands and Israel both have, I think they both have like starting like rosters that have been hitters that you are like, you know what, you can potentially have an impact. I think they both just struggle for anything close when it comes to like the pitching perspective. They both have one or two guys that you could be like, you know what, you can do something. Dean Kramer, for obviously the Netherlands still have Kenley Jansen taking part in this tournament, who has taken part in quite a few WBCs. I think the first time he took part in WBC, he was a catcher. So tells you how long Kenley's been taking part in these tournaments. But that the infield for the Netherlands that you can pick between Ozzy Albies, Xander Bogaerts, Didi Gregorius, Jeremy Profar, and Charles Sloop. It's like there's some pretty good names there that you would recognize. So Sadel Rafaela joining that team as well means that it's going to be a good Dutch team. But I think it, as well as Team Israel, will struggle just from not having the pitching depth.
It looks like they're the third best
definitely.
team in the group, though. Sedan Rafaela in the outfield with Jurickson, Profar, and the manager's son, Drew Jones. Yeah, so
Nepotism.
It looks like they will be competitive in every single game. But, if it was over a 7-game series, you wouldn't give them a chance. But, as I keep going on, in these one-off games, they can easily get a couple of wins, and then you suddenly find that they're the ones who are playing Japan in the next round.
What a prize to look forward to. So we shouldn't skip over Nicaragua. We're the final team on the list. Any hopes for these guys? Could they pull off an upset against the Netherlands or Israel at least?
Any team that is managed by Dusty Baker, you have to give a chance.
Yeah, it's what I think we've definitely discussed this in the past, that like actually Hall of Fame managers don't do particularly well switching over to international baseball. It's a very different kettle of fish. But same as you said, like with the Brazilian team, like even though you might in some regards clearly say they are the weakest team in the group, you would be daft to basically say that they're just going to lose, because hey, like even the Rockies beat the Dodgers every now and then, so it's like it's a possibility. The leading guys for probably for Nicaragua is Mark Vientos, who still currently is a Met. Who know if he'll be a Met by the time this tournament actually takes place. But yeah, I think he's probably that. There's a name that a few other people might know in Jeter Downs, if people remember the Mookie Betts trade. And I think it's Ismael Munguia, who is a Yankees prospect. But beyond that, it's a lot of players that have played for Nicaragua in international tournaments before. Again, gives them a little edge because they know how to do this. But I think respectively, like we do expect them to probably finish last.
Throwing shade on Royals legend Chesler Cuthbert, Russ, who was worth negative 1.6 war between 2015 and 2020.
Oh man, that is a name that I know that has picked me up points in fantasy occasionally.
Probably very briefly picked you up some points. He had one decent season in 2016, and then the rest not so much. But big leaguer, all counts, over 1,000 big league plate appearances, so he has the experience.
Yeah, and I think he's taken part for them in the last tournament and in part of their qualifiers as well. So
yeah, so he's got the international experience.
So as far as I know, we still haven't got a TV deal, have we?
In the UK, no.
Right.
I think both sources close and far away from us know that something is being worked on. Hopefully, when we get to do the Team GB more in depth, we can give some details on that more than we know right now what actually will be. There is also going to be some hopefully organized fan watching events, but again, these are also things that can't be confirmed until how these TV deals are sorted. So yes, hopefully we can confirm all of that in the not too distant future when these potential deals get finalized one way or another.
But the games are at some of the games are at really good times. So we've got 6 p.m. start for GB Mexico on the Friday night. So that's Friday the 6th of March. And then we have a 1 a.m. start against USA, 6 p.m. on Sunday against Italy, and 6 p.m. against Brazil. So that's a lot of good baseball watching those 4 days.
Yeah, I will say, I didn't say, I don't think at the top, but the tournament covers March the 5th to the 17th. So that will be the period over which the games take. So the World Baseball Classic takes place from the 5th of March to the 17th of March. We will update you as soon as we can with more of those details about how to watch the tournament, and especially on how to watch those GB games as soon as we get them. As mentioned before, we will also have a GB specific podcast coming up in the very near future. We're hoping to get some very special guests for that one, so do watch out for that. As always, please do check out the website at batflipsandnerds.com. Lots of great content there about the WBC, about MLB, about fantasy baseball. Thank you very much again to Gav and Russ for joining me on this episode. Great to get their knowledge about the WBC, and we'll be sure to have more of that when we have that GB episode, and we'll be back soon as well with a bit of an MLB off-season recap and looking ahead to the season itself, which will be starting in just under a month and a half now, so exciting times all around. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.